Hi folks, Casey back here again after a bit of a break, and I'm here in the wood shop actually. I thought I'd do a video about routing neck pockets. So this is applicable to those like fender style bolt-on necks, whether it be for a regular solid body or a solid body cigar box guitar like in the case I'm working on right here. This is a slight variation on a video posted by Ben Crow at Crimson Guitars about making a temporary neck routing pocket. And the reason why I like to use a temporary neck routing pocket is because when you make guitars by hand, every neck's going to be a little bit different. Okay, so before I get into the theory and actually routing out this neck pocket, I thought I'd just show you guys the instrument that I'm working on first. So it's a Padron 7000 cigar box, and I have it filled up with poplar, so effectively making it a solid body. And this is an idea I got from Josh Guyu's book, Advanced Cigar Box Guitar Making. And the reason why I like to do this, as he mentions in his book, is that 6-string guitar necks tend to be quite heavy, with the truss rod and having 6 full tuners up there. If you did just a standard neck through on like a hollow cigar box, it would get very neck heavy and kind of uncomfortable to play. So effectively making this into a solid body helps balance out the weight a bit more. And speaking of the neck, here is the neck. It is 2 pieces of cherry and then a roasted maple fretboard. The first thing I decided to do was just put a piece of masking tape down where the center line is and mark out that center line. And after that, I marked a line 3 inches in from the neck side of the box, and that's going to be the end of our neck pocket. So that means we're going to have 3 inches of contact between the back of the neck and the core of the cigar box. You'll also want to mark a center line on the neck. Now, I don't know how well this is showing up here with the lighting, but since I have a 2-piece neck, the glue joint also serves as my center line between the 2 pieces. So I'm going to line the neck up on there, and then what I'm going to do instead of drawing out where the line is and scribing out, what I'm going to do is take these pieces of MDF that have a flat edge on them and lay them on either side of the box. And you'll see I have a piece of masking tape right here perpendicular to the center line. I'm going to measure about how wide that gap is on that end. And for me, that's a little under 2.5 inches. That'll vary depending on your neck width. I like a wider neck on mine, so that measurement might be a bit wider. So what I'm going to do now is just take everything off. And I'm going to make essentially a ruler right here. So the back side of this ruler actually has a centering tool on it. And you have all these little marks. And the problem is I wouldn't be able to fit that in between the 2 pieces of MDF to line it up properly on the center line. So what I'm going to do is just make some marks, maybe every 1/16 of an inch, around that 2.5 inch mark on either side. So then when I put the neck back on and put the 2 pieces of MDF next to them, I know that I could line up the center of the neck with the center line of the box, and I'll know the whole neck is centered on the center line when the 2 pieces of MDF are equidistant from this center piece. So after a bit of trial and error, I came to the conclusion that 32nd inch tick marks actually helped me align the neck a bit better instead of 1/16 of an inch. So what these little marks will enable me to do is to take my neck, I'll put it down on the center, and take my 2 pieces of MDF. This is a bit less cumbersome when you're dealing with a solid body blank, because it's about 14 or 15 inches wide as opposed to a 7-inch cigar box, but it still works good here. And what we'll do is just hold that down and get a clamp on it. Okay, and now we could just align the neck at the center line on this end, and then align the bottom portion here on these little tick marks that I made. So now I know that once the neck is aligned like this, we have the neck running parallel to the center line, and it's about right there. What you can do if you are a little unsure, you could just score these lines, or not score them, you just draw them with a pencil, take it off and see how they look, and you can measure them. I'm happy with how this looks right here. So what I will do is I will mark it with a pencil. And that will be my reference. For the next step, I reoriented everything so I can clamp this neck to this box to the workbench. So what I'm going to do is align that neck with the 3-inch mark up here, and then align it with the 2 alignment marks that I made. And after double checking that and making sure everything's good, I will take this block of wood, put it over the fretboard extension or the neck joint, and clamp it down tight. I'm going to do that off camera so I could double check all my measurements, but that is what I'm going to do right here. Alright, I just double checked everything. I think everything looks good. So what I'm going to do is remove this clamp holding the 2 pieces of MDF together, and remove that. And the end result now is I have the neck exactly where I want it to be. And what I'm going to do now is just mark this location out, take it to the drill press, and with a Forstner bit I'm going to remove a lot of the material before routing. Pre-drilling before routing is going to save your router bit and also your workpiece too. So I find that's a pretty important step, so I'm just going to mark everything out. And I'll meet you back at the drill press. That's what we're left with right there. Now you notice there are a couple of areas here still. So what I like to do with those is just take a chisel and try and clean up the rest of the area. Okay, so here's what we're left with after the chiseling. The chiseling technically isn't necessary. The Forstner bit removes a lot of the material, but I do like to just get it a bit closer to the line. As you can see, it's not the prettiest sight right now, but we will be cleaning that up with the router shortly. With the material laid out and most of the waste cleared out, the next step is to get the template attached to the body. So the way I'm going to do this first is actually by clamping the neck to the side of my bench. And then putting our pieces of MDF back onto the neck. Now you want to be very careful when you lift this up because you're clamping thinner boards that are quite wide. I find that laying this bar down against the MDF will help, but we'll have this clamped down. And then just unclamp our neck, and like I said, very carefully place the neck on there, and then just realign it up. And then once you have it realigned, clamp this neck back down. I'll do that off camera just so I can focus on everything there, and I'll see you back in a second. With the neck now clamped to the body and that figure clamped down to the bench, we can now get started on attaching these pieces of MDF to the body. So the first thing I'm going to recommend doing is taking a clamp and putting it down on one of those pieces of MDF. I'll explain why I do that in just a minute. So what we're going to do here is the super glue masking tape trick, which Crimson Guitars has a great video on explaining that. What we're going to do is we're going to put masking tape on the template and on the box, and put some super glue on that masking tape. And then what we're going to do is we're going to line it up like this. It might be helpful if you have it lifted on one side just so you don't have the glue all the way down yet. And once you have it, feel like it's lined nice to the neck, you could place it down, and then what you're going to do is take this clamp and clamp it tight to the neck while you hold it down as it gets attached to the box. The reason for the clamp is so that we have a nice snug fit here, and this template is exactly where we want it on the neck. The reason for this clamp right here is because you need to work fast when doing this, and if you don't have this clamp on and you go to put this clamp on, this part may fall off and then it will be hard to get everything set up before the glue dries. So I'm going to do that right now. So the hard part's done, both sides are now secured, and like I did with the other side, just giving this an extra squeeze with the clamp helps ensure that that masking tape is really strongly bonded to both sides. And what we're going to do now is attach this smaller piece, which will serve as our stop, and we will use the same super glue and masking tape method. But first thing I want to do is just remove this tape here, because when you do when you use this, you want to make sure you're working on two flat surfaces. So I'm just going to take this tape off, but I do want to keep my center line down there. And we'll do the exact same process here. So masking tape, a little bit of super glue, and this one's a lot easier because you could just press it up against the back, hold it like that, and then you'll be all set. So we now have everything in place, so you can remove this middle clamp that's holding the neck in, and slide the neck right out. And the thing you can see that's nice is that we have a nice snug fit there. Or I wouldn't say it's too snug, but it's definitely allows the neck to fit nice as well as slide in and out smoothly. What I will do next is remove these clamps and then flip it over, and the exact same thing I did there, just give it an extra squeeze with the clamp to ensure that tape is really adhered to both surfaces well. And now we're on to the next step. So one thing I find sometimes that could happen is that the neck might fit nice, but then when you route it sometimes it will kind of wish you had a slightly tighter fit or a bit more room just for some adjustment. So what I like to do is take some masking tape and put it along each edge. And then I'll trim off the excess. I'm going to do this again after, but just to give you a demonstration here. I'll do that on both sides. And what that will do is I'll make the neck pocket just the tiniest amount smaller, but enough so that when you're done routing, the neck will fit in, I'd say just a bit tighter than you probably want it to. Or it might just be too tight and you can't fit the neck in at all. So that gives you just a bit of room that you can take a block of wood with a piece of sandpaper and sand the sides of the cavities so you could get it to fit your neck just perfectly. Okay, so I just took a bit of time to get that masking tape in there, and as you can see on both sides now, we have just that extra layer there, so the neck pocket will be just a touch tighter. And now our next step is to clamp this to our bench, and we could take out the router. Alright, so after a lot of preparation, we are finally ready to route the neck pocket. Just remember, with routers, they are very dangerous, so always be mindful of where your hands are and have a proper face shield, because those wood chips go everywhere, and always be mindful of the direction of your router bit. So I'm going to put on some safety gear now, and I will route out this neck pocket. As you can see, I'm covered in sawdust, but we have ourselves a nicely routed neck pocket. You can see by the burn marks there, my bit's getting a bit dull, but on to the next step, after a quick cleanup, of course. Our neck pocket is now routed. Although, because of the because of the masking tape, it's a bit too tight. It doesn't want to, fit in all the way. So the way we solve that is just by using a piece of wood or MDF or acrylic with some sandpaper on it. And then I also have some sandpaper attached to the steel rule to get into the corners. So I'll spend a bit of time finessing this joint so they could fit together well. Well, as a testament to the saying, measure twice, cut once, I have the neck pocket about 1/8 of an inch shallower than it should be. So I have a nice fitting neck pocket now, but it's about 1/8 of an inch too high. So I'm going to go back to the router and route this just a touch deeper. After a bit of reworking, here's what we're left with, and as you can see, the neck slides in nicely, and there's just the tiniest bit of room for it to, expand and contract with weather changes, and just enough room that it's not being forced in, but it fits pretty nice that there's relatively minimal wiggle room there. One final note I do want to mention is that if you're doing this with a already finished neck and you use that layer of masking tape on each side of the template to make a tighter fit, you might end up wearing the finish on the side a bit, as you can see there in the light. If you want to avoid this, you could do it without the masking tape. I'm just going to do a little touch-up finish to that, and then it will be all ready for bolts. So I hope you enjoyed that and found some insights and information that you might use yourself when building. The next step would be from this point to drill the holes for the bolts, and as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to be using stainless steel inserts. So I'm going to drill the holes and thread those inserts in. But now we have a guitar that is starting to look like a guitar. So I hope you enjoyed this, and if you have any questions, you can reach out, and I'll see you in the next video.